All right, so we're here with James again, CEO of Rupert Resources. We spoke last in, I think it was May last year, and since then you've been trucking along, you've been drilling, you're holding to your timeline as you were stated it last time. So maybe you can give a bit of a brief of what has happened since then, and remind everyone maybe what your cash position is at currently, and we can go from there.
Yeah, Phil, thanks for the time, and hi everyone. I'm happy to give everyone an update. Look, yeah, it's been it's always a busy year at Rupert Resources, I've decided, which is good. Well, driven, especially busy when you make a significant discovery like we did back in 2020. So, look, in terms of where the company is at today, we have, I guess, we finished the end of the year within the order, well, just over 40 million Canadian dollars. So we're still very well funded for the coming period. Obviously, with the backdrop of what is a very good gold price but a very weak gold equities market, I guess that puts us in a quite unique position compared to our peers. It just allows us, as we've always said, to try and keep that flexibility there in our in what we're doing and how we manage the company. So, look, I think back last May, we'd already released the PEA results. We were very much working on drilling out Ikkari to get it to the indicated stage, so we could start the next stage of engineering, because we then base it on a converting that resource to a reserve. We successfully did that, announced those results. 4 million ounces was the target, and the team delivered on that. Just over 4 million ounces was converted into indicated. That came out in November, so that was a great success for the team, and just again, just reiterate the quality and the consistency and continuity of that Ikkari ore body to enable us to do that with just, I guess, literally 110,000 meters. So where are we now? We're well into all the EIA work, so all the permitting work. We basically, as soon as we finished that PEA, we formally engaged the full permitting process for the project. So that's really what drives things now. We are working towards developing that EIA report, which is the next step in Finland, that you support a report that encompasses all the project and presents it to the authorities. So that's what we're working on at the moment. We said we're working towards getting that completed this year, and obviously the PFS is part of that engineering work that contributes into it. It's sort of the market-facing part, which again, we've been saying we're going to try and complete that this year too.
Yes, so the PFS, when more precisely do you expect that to be released this year?
I think the reality is it's in the second half of the year. We aren't committing hard to a time frame, because I guess the most for, I guess, your investors and listeners, the main thing in Finland is to focus more on the environmental permitting exercise, because and maybe if I just give you a little bit of a snapshot, that being too technical, the pathway and the timeline to production is really controlled by the permitting, which in Finland requires you to generate what is called an EIA report, Environmental Impact Assessment Report. And in that, you assess lots of different ways to develop the project, be they, the current sort of PEA design with that open pit and that type of underground, different underground designs, different actual waste locations for the project, and all the so there's that, if I look at all the different combinations that you easily get to in excess of 10 different combinations. So it's really about engineering those, working those, and out of the back of that, obviously we will want to present in the PFS what is the environmentally the best way to develop the project, but obviously matching that with the economics as well. So hopefully the two actually probably marry up in the end anyway, because simplest project is really what wins each time for the environmental side, and simplest project tends to be what wins on the economic side.
Yeah, and I remind viewers, we went through this kind of process and the trade-offs in depth last conversation. We will link that conversation here, so you can find more details. But obviously, another part of it, I mean, you're in a very prospective region now. You've recently had quite significant hit at Heina South. There might be something there. And this, you're open at depth. You might have a bit more resource plunge down to the west. So I mean, you will find more gold, right? It's obvious. It's going to happen. You will find more gold in area 1, and the resource will grow. It will grow. So that aspect, I mean, are you trying to? Do you think it's likely that you can find sufficient amount that the throughput design for the final uh, operations at Ikkari will transform? Because obviously displacing the high quality resource that you have, I mean, you might if you're lucky, but Heina South has a tough competitor to
Yeah,
Ikkari.
look, I think it's. I mean, look, we in our deck in that slide 7, we show this how new discoveries can evolve. So we're quite early into Ikkari, maybe 4 years into the discovery, but it's 4 years now, and like as with all significant discoveries, the first ounces come relatively quickly because just when you find something this scale and quality, that really drives that. But then after that, it's you step back again, learn from everything you've done through the last few years. So we've really learned through all the exploration work we've done, the new structural modeling of the deposit, and developed a really, our geological understanding between 2020 when we made the discovery and today is night and day, effectively. So we're now applying all that back to doing our exploration again. So what's that leading to? Well, it's leading to us reassessing things like Heina South. And obviously through that new model, that's how we just made some really good drill hits the other day. And then, if you look at it now, we're still drilling there, still committing more meters because we see potential to build on that. And also you alluded to, obviously, even at Ikkari itself, the resource that we announced in November is still drill constrained. You're in a situation where your inferred resource that sits outside the indicator is right at the limits. There's really no. It's maybe we're probably not as excited about any easterly extensions, but certainly it remains open in depth and to the west down plunge. So we're pretty positive about that. But it's I guess it's the thing to drive the value is for the company going forward and for people to understand is that we're only, we really are focusing on, as you said, you've got to find potential resource ounces that fit into this schedule. You've got some of the best ounces in the business in Ikkari already. And so they use up your it's hard to compete with those over the first 15-year life of the project. So you're trying to find other ones that might come in alongside that, which, as you said, might go to maybe changing scope a little bit in terms of scale. But then also, the real desire should be to find more good quality ounces that give you an even longer life for the
Yes.
project. And I think what is often underestimated in this business is that you see lots of companies really focus on the first 10 years. That's great for MPV, for sure. But ultimately, that doesn't necessarily tend to be the most optimal way to develop the projects, because sometimes you compromise and your costs are high, your capex are high because you're trying to get it all out of the ground quickly. I guess the approach that we take is to take a longer term view and say, what is the most efficient way to capital efficient way and cost efficient way to extract those ounces? So that's how we arrived at the 3.5 million ton per annum in the PEA. For sure, there's a bit of room to move on that if we want to, but actually getting them out of the ground doesn't necessarily make the valuation of the company rise. It's more high quality ounces for longer, or finding a way to extract more of those ounces cheaper is really what's going to drive the win going forward.
But in the EIA report submission, if I recall correctly, nothing critical is set in stone in that step. I mean, things can be revised in the final EIA that I guess is submitted with the DFS, if I recall correctly, in Finland.
Yeah, you don't. So in Finland, PFS, DFS, you kind of just put that all to one side. That's got nothing to do with your permitting.
It's separate, yeah. Okay.
It's totally separate. It's basically a mark as a Canadian listed company or a listed company. It's consider those more of a market facing document. You are continuously evolving your engineering, but in your EIA, you're right. That has to cover all the potential options. And if you came across another option in the future that you think is better, you'd have to append that to your EIA reports, because it's an interesting document because it kind of sits there forever in the background for all the stakeholders to understand what this might like. So it mentions things like Heina South, Heina Central. It mentions, as
Yes.
future satellites. It might not have them in the schedule, but it's the fact that it's already as part of the overall project plan is a better way to look at it. So when the government or the municipality or the local stakeholders effectively, are comfortable with understanding it, then you've got your license to operate, really. So, but for a much longer period of time.
So I mean, that's obviously your critical path. So beyond the submission, when do you plan to submit, and what's the? Can you remind everyone what the timeline looks like until complete permitted and your construction
Yeah.
ready?
So I think, if you look at we don't have a slide on this in the presentation. I guess our aim has always been, in the best possible case, to be submitting your environmental permit application towards the end of next year, when you've already submitted your environmental report, EIA report, and then you've made comments back. But as soon as you submit that report, they are independent processes. You submit that, receive comments, they might ask for amendments, but while you're working on those, you start writing your environmental permit application, and then you put that in, because then that's the key thing that has to be approved. And so, look, if 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 we do a really good job with this and we make sure we try and identify any of these issues, we you should be able to go through that process and be beginning to do some construction in maybe 2027, to meet we've talked in the past, like 2028, 2029 production. So I think that's very realistic. There's a lot of parallel bits of the process that go on to achieve that, but we still think that's achievable.
Yeah. And the exploration, I mean, now you're still drilling quite a bit. The tempo
Yeah.
that you're currently at, do you expect to keep up with that? I mean, do you expect to run with this kind of level of intensity in the next season and for the rest of 24 and say Q1 25 as well?
I think, look, exploration is success driven, but exploration is a core part of the business. So maybe I'll answer that in two parts. At the moment, the budget for next winter will be decided effectively. We have a budget for drilling, which will have a certain X amount, but the actual amount is only really determined by the success or not of exploration this year. Because say, if the Heina South drilling continues to go well, we might, we want to be in a position where, we might allocate some more equipment to go and drill that up to a resource so we can get that done next winter. Sort of think about those timing. We always will keep what I call our grassroots exploration business going, because philosophically, a resources company can't exist without doing that, because ultimately, it would be like being a pharmaceutical company shutting down your R&D because you decided, I'm not going to produce, not going to innovate anymore and not produce any more products. So you have to keep that going. So there's a core part of it, and I think what's important for people to understand is that we discovered Ikkari. We made probably the first 3-4 discoveries with one drill rig and one base tool rig and some geophysics. And that is what I call our core grassroots exploration business. And that is a relatively low cost business to run. Well, it's probably in the order of $5 million a year. So it's not low cost, but that's probably your, call it your bare bones R&D part of the business that you want to keep going.
And that created everything, right?
Absolutely. And I think, and done well, that can continue to create a huge amount of value considering the amount that you invest in it. So you just have to keep that part of the business looking for those significant discoveries.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, it's a fundamentally reactive thing, as you say. But I mean, let's do a hypothetical. So let's say Heina South is let's say it becomes, it is just over a gram, say 2 million ounce resource in the ground, hypothetically, right? That would be a great project in many places, and it's for sure economical standalone. in Finland too. But would that be interesting for you to drill out something like that? Or would it have to be more grade competitive? Obviously, you have perfect morphology at Ikkari, so
Of
that's not
course,
a problem.
look, I think it all comes down to morphology. In the end, it's the shape that matters as much as the grade. Um, I think if it's beginning to look at those sort of scale, you absolutely want to get it drilled up to at least an inferred stage, so you can really start thinking about it on that basis in your environmental permitting process. Because then you're thinking, right, there's going to be, how many millions of tons is that of ore and waste is that going to translate to? And literally, we're not, on the permitting side, we're just worried about rock movement, not, so. So absolutely that, and maybe it sits in, maybe it's in years, 15 to 20 or 20 plus years life of the Ikkari project. But I think, we'd certainly take it to that level of understanding. And whether we drill it out to a reserve, that's more of an internal decision, to be honest. If we feel that we want to make it a reserve, but you can update the study at some point in the future. But I said the
Yes.
PFS does not determine whether the timeline. You've got Ikkari provides you with such a strong project as a base load for the first 10 years, regardless. You can do whatever you like to do. You've got time to go back to it, but for sure, it'd be good to have that as an inferred resource.
But just touch back on the budget again. So give people a sense. 40 million CAD, maybe a bit below that now, but close to. How far does that carry you into this process?
So look, we're with that, our budget for the coming 12 months is in the order of 40 million Canadian, a bit less.
Okay.
So that probably gives you a sense of that. So obviously, at some point in time, we will need to raise more equity. That's that's about that. But we don't need to do it today. Do we need to do it in 6 months' time? Probably. But we don't. We can give ourselves the flexibility and the time to react. Maybe we get a better gold market. Maybe we deliver some better results and out of the back of that. So it's just about having those different options regarding timing on this. And look, it's a great quality project. We have managed to build up some really good quality large institutions that would like to continue to increase their positions or at least participate in its funding. So the ability to fund a project of this quality doesn't necessarily keep me awake at night, for that expression. Obviously, we are very, very conscious though managing the amount of money we raise for the for the amount of shares you've got to issue. So you're just price sensitive. So maybe you just raise a little bit less if the market's not there for you. And you have to be, again, we're still a relatively small company. I think we're in the order of 40 people these days, but still, it does give you a good sense of flexibility.
I mean, so kind of briefly, with the pools of spending in the coming 12 months, you have drilling, of course. You said that's at about 5 million per year.
Well, that's just the base exploration. So I'd say and then we will
non-drilling,
more project drilling to do. We've got to decide how much we're going to take through to the measured category for Ikkari, for instance, because before you know it, the PFS is done and we're starting to speak to banks about debt financing. They'll want to look at debt coverage ratios for the project. We know the payback's a couple of years, but maybe you need 4 years drilled out to the measured category in the open pit. So that's something, maybe that's, that could easily be $5 million again, plus some other project drilling. So just drilling, those sort of budgets, that's probably in the order of $10 to $15 million. Environmental permitting, maybe 5, engineering another 5, and then you've got your overhead costs and everything on top of that, your people in it.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. But could you speak to the market? Because I mean, people just go back and take a look at the PEA and look at the economics and look at your market cap. It's almost like you guys could just continue to advance here. You're in Finland, and people here in Sweden, of course, know it's a steady state jurisdiction. It takes some time, but you can build a project there. It's going to happen. This is going to be a mine in the next 5 years. You're going to be very close, or it's going to be producing. So if you just take that and you look at the current valuation, and as you get closer in time, obviously the cash flow starts to become less discounted, and just on that basis, it looks like an insanely attractive investment case. Just on the you getting closer in
Absolutely.
time.
You know, where you are today, we're trading on maybe, I don't know, maybe it's 0.3. I think the share's just under $3 last night, so maybe less than 0.3 of the potential NAV of the project. So look, single mine producers never trade at the same multiples of the others. Well, you'd say that, but then look at something like London Gold that trades on a a fantastic multiple. So, but that's because they're a growth company, and they show incredible margins. So look, it's a great business model to replicate in some ways. Yes, you're right. If you just take this company through, it's a growth company. It should have fantastic margins when it's in production, and be able to make significant returns to its shareholders that have been involved in it all this time. So look, I come from the investment side, so my I've already planned out in going back to 2019, 2018, before we even made the discovery, a business model that got us to X million shares when we're in production. Obviously, we've got 203 million shares or 204 million shares out today. We may well have to issue, with the capex and costs there, maybe there's an order of maybe 80, 100 million more shares have to be issued over that time. But even then, that's a still if you're in production with that amount of shares out, the payback's quick. The potential returns to the shareholders, over the longer term is really strong. Yeah, I think there's a few analysts that obviously cover the stock, and I guess analyst models today are different to where they were 10 years ago. They're effectively in production share prices. So that gives you a sense. And what are they, $8.50, $9 in terms of the average equity analyst view of the company. So, but from $3 today, that's a long way away for sure. So, yeah, an very attractive investment proposition.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
not to mention, I mean, yes, one could say that you were a bit lucky, of course, with hitting into this beast right away. But now, when you actually understand the model, and you're speaking with Kalle, it's obvious that things settle down and it crystallizes how this happened, how this discovery was made. Your ability to duplicate that now and find something else on the Ikkari trend or elsewhere in your packages is well, it should be very good, especially there's room for more exploration surprises in the interim as well. So there's convexity there in the upside too, I would say. So it's
I absolutely, and I think it's to make we were very strategic and systematic about how we set up. When I came in, and we had a very specific plan to find a significant discovery. Because if we didn't find a significant discovery, we're just like every other exploration company that's just issuing start trying to raise $1 billion. We didn't have that strategy at all. We went out and raised big tranches of money early on, because you have to take that hit to be able to have the success. You need to be spending $7-10 million a year in this business on grassroots exploration to get anywhere near making a discovery in this gold sector, in the gold space. And we were in a brand new belt with no exploration, which in some ways excited us more because it looks so prospective, and look, it has delivered. But now, if I still look at our land package today, we still own 20 kilometers of this interesting belt that we've barely put many drill holes into, really, with us a couple of slides in the deck, isn't there, these days? With like slide 18, you've got like these 12 kilometers. This is just sort of area one, effectively. And what is there, 10 discoveries in there now? But given the amount of drilling we've done, it's all pretty early stage. And yeah, maybe we might have found some of the easier targets that showed themselves better. But then it's interesting, these latest results from Heina South, why didn't we drill those particular areas previously? Well, we had bad base of till in those areas. The quality of the base of till was poor, so it was unreliable. So we were focused early on drilling, our best quality base of till targets. We go back, lo and behold, the structure continues between them, and that's just in one little part of the license in the western corner. But there's still plenty of opportunity to go and revisit all that extra part of the belt. So, and that's what that grassroots exploration team does. And success takes time and understanding geologically, but it's so important and so exciting. I mean, that's why I joined the company in the first place and said, left a very good job in fund management. And why did I come? Because the prospectivity of the geology from a very 30,000 foot view looked really, really good for the licenses we have. And we still own those licenses and we're still exploring. And look, there's, this area has got really interesting in the last couple of years. Now, when I go to St. Angela, it's not just Rupert Resources and some junior companies filling around. You've got serious companies operating in this region now, be they First Quantum, Rios, BHP's up in the north, north of Finland now, in northern Norway, exploring, through junior companies. But, in our belt, Kinross, B2 Gold, Agnico Eagle, just done a joint venture with Firefox on some grounds to the north of us, which we looked at that ground. They Firefox got there first. It's some interesting ground for sure. So I think, it's goes back to those, some of our peer companies and even ourselves at the beginning of this, compared this belt to other belts in the world, and the fact that you're sort of 100 years behind on exploration in this part of the world, commercial exploration, I call it. Let's see what happens next over the next 5 or 10 years here. I think it'd be very interesting, and I'm sure there'll be plenty of discoveries, not just gold, but also on the base metal side.
So I'm Kalle Kotiaho. I'm the exploration manager at Rupert Resources, and my job is to run the exploration work here in Lapland, in the Rupert Lapland project, and currently we're quite busy with drilling, as it's our busy winter season at the moment. So first of all, I'd like to talk about what we're actually doing this winter. So our greatest focus, of course, is now Area 1 and the Ikkari region. But then, of course, we have our regional programs ongoing in the background as well, as we have had for a few years. And in the map over there, you can see highlighted the areas that we're focusing our regional work on this winter. Then going through to Area 1 and what we are actually doing this winter. So we have quite many gaps or areas that we haven't drilled in the Ikkari region before, and we have done a bit of new geophysics in the area where we could get a better resolution to the maps, and we could interpret and make some better geological maps and interpretations of the area, which have led to new focuses of our drilling in the area. So the geological setting, it hasn't changed in Area 1. So in a broad scale, it looks like this. So very similar to our previous interpretations, and these are our focus areas still. During last summer and during the fall, we did a few reinterpretations of our structures and of our geology in Area 1 and around the Ikkari region, and we highlighted that we have quite a few undrilled areas still, which have great potential for mineralization, and they have led to then, for example, our hole 124006 that intercepted 1 meter at 1,115 grams per ton. But work is still ongoing in the area, and currently we have 2 rigs turning in Heina South and 1 rig turning in Ikkari at the moment. So here's the result from Heina South. So on long section looking north. So we had a few gaps in our drilling, and our first holes have already intercepted the widest continuous intercept in Heina South thus far, plus also the over 1,000 gram per ton meter vein of gold. And work over here in Heina South, it's still continuing, so haven't stopped. So let's see how far we get during this winter.
Let's start there. So in Ikkari itself, do you see any of these extremely high grade vein or veinlet expressions in Ikkari, or is this an expression of something a different beast?
Yes, Heina South is a bit of a different beast. It's a bit of a different mineralizing system. It, of course, it's in area 1, so it's a part of the same mineralizing system, but it just expresses itself a bit differently to Ikkari. So Ikkari is this it has these really broad, wide intercepts, a bit lower grade, but then the width is far greater in Ikkari than in Heina South. But then Heina South is it's known to have these really high grade, a bit narrower intercepts.
So can you remind everyone how far away is Heina South from Ikkari? It's not a big distance.
Heina South is approximately a kilometer northwest from Ikkari, so it's really close. It's one of our satellite occurrences that we have drilled before, but we have been focusing on the eastern parts of it, and now we're focusing on the western parts of Heina South.
And Helmi, how far to the south is Helmi from Heina South?
From Heina South, Helmi is approximately a bit less than a kilometer south from Ikkari.
And between
Or
these two,
Heina South,
obviously,
sorry.
yeah. So but obviously Ikkari is a bona fide discovery. Helmi, it's something, but it's not going to be an Ikkari. It looks like, and then potentially you think you could maybe connect the two underground because you haven't drilled beneath 150 meters between Helmi and Ikkari. Obviously, you have most of the property between the two because they've gone right up to the border of the property, correct?
Yes, so we have actually done a drill program this winter just to see what we have between Ikkari and Helmi, and to find out finally is there something between there. And were some hits, but wasn't super fantastic. But it's all information that we have to have when moving forward in this project.
Okay, so the gap between the two. Would you say that the drilling done, how many meters was that? And would you say that it has been falsified or kind of been made clear to not be of interest to pursue further?
Yeah, so we drilled approximately 2,000 meters into the gap, and there was really nothing super exciting for us, at least.
So you would say now you're going to focus on other things. That's probably verified to not be prospective.
Yes, Ikkari is still open. It's still open at depth. It's still open east, and there are several ways that it's open. But then that 1 kilometer gap between Helmi and Ikkari, it's looking like in that gap there's nothing high grade enough or wide enough to be economical, at least to our knowledge at the moment.
And the spectacular vein intersections at Heina South. I mean, when you have that high grade, is that free gold? Is it nuggety, or what was the character of that gold? Because we see this in other places in Finland. Sometimes you have these spectacular grades, but it's kind of unpursuable in a sense because it's just a bunch of nuggets, or it's very difficult to kind of track.
Yeah, it was free gold and lots of it, but we've had some trouble in Heina South trying to track down these really high grade veins that we've had. But during the drilling this year, I earlier mentioned that we drilled the widest continuous intercept in Heina South thus far, which is makes things a lot easier for us because we've found the wide mineralized system instead of the narrow vein systems. So that's something that we're further drilling, and we see that there's lots of potential in that. And let's see what the outcome is then after the winter. But I'm fairly optimistic about it at the moment, at least.
I mean, would you expect that the kind of very high grade, intense veins would be a different gold event for them to form, or is it related to a more continuous kind of source or something like that you're intersecting now with more extensive distributed mineralization? Can you vector or something like that, or what's are they related or are they separate? What's your view?
Well, my view of Area 1 is that it's a it's a multiple fluid phase mineralizing system. We've done some age dating even in this system, so we know already that we have a 55 million year old gap of mineralizing fluids in the system. So it's a really big system, long lived, and we have multiple stages of fluid flow. So yes, it is the same event in Ikkari, but then again, we don't exactly know where in those 55-60 million years, for example, Heina South has been mineralized, then where Ikkari has been mineralized. So we don't know the exact time, but we do know that it's the same mineralizing time frame or time event.
So I mean, so Heina South, how many meters did you drill so far this winter? Or are you still drilling, or have you wrapped up the Heina South drilling now?
We're still drilling. We've drilled approximately 2,000, 3,000 meters now in Heina South, and now we have 2 rigs turning instead of 1 in the target. So it's advancing well and pretty fast. So we should have some information by the end of winter that what type of system we're looking at.
Yes, and I take it once you hit this continuous mineralization, you pulled the rig from Ikkari main or something like that to pursue that further. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's how we work at Rupert. We prioritize. If we see something worthwhile following, then we moved a bit more rigs and put a bit more holes in our plans to drill out this system.
So tell us, I mean, obviously you hit this continuous intersection, which is of course interesting. It points to you having something more significant there. So how has that shaken up your original exploration plans? Because first you were poking some holes, now you found something, and now you pulled another rig. Or are you doing short step outs now, or how's the game plan changed?
Well, the game plan changed in the way that originally these were just scout holes that we were planning to drill over here because we saw something interesting there and checked that is it real, is it there. Then we found out yes, it's there. So we had to kind of replan a bit and reorganize. It's a really short time frame that we have. We only have 4 or 5 months to drill during winter, so it requires some quick moves and then just moving rigs around and making sure that we have the meters needed to actually define the target.
And the intersection, I mean, how deep did you drill this hole? Was it one continuous intersection, or was it 2 intersections within one hole with some sterile material in between? I think we can see it on the screen there, right?
Yes,
the left.
yeah, you can see from the screen on the left that there was some barren material in between, and there was a lower grade intercept at the top of the hole. So that already gave us, even though the grade wasn't fantastic in the top either, but it gave us encouragement that the intercepts were so continuous instead of being sporadic and not continuous, basically.
And right to the left, you have another hole that intersects as well, closer to surface, and then it's barren beneath. So, I mean, it looks like. What's your interpretation? Are you having like bands of gold in the horizontal plane, or what's your? I mean, it's very early to say, but what's your working hypothesis right now? What you're dealing with, the morphology of that gold?
Well, we have a few holes that were drilled quite far just to test the geology and make sure that we have our geology right. And now we know that we don't want to drill that material anymore because we know it's a gabbro, and we have sediments further north. So this is a long section looking north. So that hole is actually coming to us. So
Okay.
now we have a better control on the geology of the target, so we know what we want to drill and what we don't. We know that there's a sedimentary package that's very intensely sheared, brecciated, deformed, has lots of sulfide mineralization plus gold mineralization, and that's what we want to drill. And we don't want to drill the gabbro. Now we know that.
Yes. So how? Remind everyone, the season. Of course, you have 4 or 5 months. Finished winter. When does it end? When do you expect to stop drilling here?
Well, the winter in Finland might end a bit earlier, but winter in Lapland that ends mid-April, late April usually. So that's when the swamps melt, and this target is entirely on a swamp. So now is if we want to drill it, so now's the time.
Yeah, you have 2 rigs. What's the advance rate? Or these are not scout rigs anymore. They're real.
They're diamond rigs, yeah.
Yeah. And what kind of advance rate are you seeing, and how deep are you planning to drill? How many holes are you? Can you explain? I mean, how much do you think you're able to get done in terms of drilling here at this newly found target?
Well, minimum will be drilling 3,000 meters still in this target, in addition to these holes, but it might be even more. So depending on what we keep hitting, so depending on that, we might push in more rigs or keep it at the 3,000 meter or 3,000 meter level.
And then kind of, I mean, obviously, it's tough to beat Ikkari, right? I mean, even if you have 1.5 grams per ton, I mean, that's probably not going to replace. It might not even replace material from Ikkari's early mine life. So how are you thinking around that? Are you willing to drill stuff like that out, or will you say if it looks like that's going to be the quality of a decent sized resource, will you still keep on doing it? I mean, it's tail and stuff, but
Yeah, it depends on. Of course, it depends on the grade and everything, but everything near Ikkari, it's one of our targets to find a satellite ore body for Ikkari as well. So even though it's not 4 million ounces, we can take a bit less even. so it's okay in that sense. And of course, that's wider intercept. That was our first release. There probably is a bit more coming.
so hypothetically, and this one is geos don't like these ones obviously, but fools like ourselves, non-geologists, love to have them answered anyways. So, what does a successful 2-3,000 meters look like at Heina South? What would say, okay, shit, this is this. I'm really pleased with this outcome for you personally.
Well, it's if we get continuous grade for a decent amount of strike at this stage that we're on. So at this stage, we're defining the targets. We're not drilling it into a resource yet. We just have to define the outlines, where it actually goes, where it runs, and then next winter, if everything goes well, that's when we would push in and start drilling a resource out of it. But a success would be that we have a continuous mineral zone for at least 100-200 meters of strike, hopefully more, but that would be the success. And of course, the grade has to be there as well. So it preferably higher than a gram or a gram and a half, but a continuous, consistent mineralized zone at this stage in target definition stage, and then it will be next step would be then drilling out a resource of it if everything goes well.
And are you trying to pursue these extremely high grade veins as well, or is that something that you're just gonna leave for now because it's tricky to do and it's costly, I guess, to try to hit them?
Yeah, high grade veins, they're kind of a bonus. So we're trying to get these continuous zones in Heina South instead of just the high grade veins. Well, of course, high grade veins are very nice. You see lots of gold, but then if you think about it technically, so the wider intercepts, those are our target. And preferably if we'd have those two combined, so wider zones with high grade veins, that would be fantastic. But let's see how that goes.
So you've done the connection 1 km drilling to test between Ikkari and Helmi. You've had success here at Heina South. What other ideas have you pursued in Area 1? Kind of open or satellite pit ideas or satellite potential ideas for Ikkari, or also extensions on Ikkari. Everything related to Ikkari. What else have you done so far, and what are you planning to do this season?
We're drill testing also the depth extents of Ikkari. So we have a bit of deep drilling going on over there, and of course we have our plunge in the west is open. We're testing that, and then did I mention Ikkari North already? So we have other satellite targets as well that potential satellite targets that we are testing this winter to check that if they would be good or have the grade and width to be a good satellite body. And well, that's basically area one and Ikkari in a nutshell. And then of course we have our regional programs running. So we still have our base of tilt rig elsewhere, and if that one starts coming up with something interesting, then we'll be sending a diamond rig after it to scout, drill, and test the targets.
Okay, I think that's good. And the northern target, how many meters are you allocating there? And has that begun yet, or is that tail end of the season?
Ikkari North, you mean?
Yes.
Ikkari North, it's we've drilled that target before, and now we're stepping out a few hundred meters east to an undrilled area, and we allocated, was it 1,500 meters for that? Just to, well, basically it's the same thing as we did in Heina South, just to check that is it good, is it worthwhile, and do we need to drill a bit more, and does it have the potential to be a satellite for Ikkari in the future?
Yeah. So we'll speak about regional, but can you pull up a good visualization where we can kind of speak about the west dipping plunge and depth extension of Ikkari, and so people can get a sense of what could be there?
Yes. So Ikkari in the west, it's still open, especially where you can see the high grades a bit deeper. So those are the ones that we're chasing with our western drilling in Ikkari, and there's a plunge to it, but our drilling is kind of limiting it, so we don't know yet where it goes and what happens with it. But then again, we did our closer to surface drilling in the west, which showed that it's not at least coming to surface. But let's see what happens with that one.
So can you indicate with the mouse the potential extension of the morphology that you're testing? I mean, how are you designing the holes to hit a hypothetical target right now?
Well, the hypothetical target would be that we just drill in this corridor approximately and try to get a hit there, because there probably is an extent over here, but it's not drill tested yet.
Okay, so it's beyond that. I mean, could it potentially continue to plunge, or you could have like a little knife that pockets out even further there, or do you have some kind of limiting information to how much you could see there in terms of potential?
There's really no limiting knowledge at the moment. We haven't drilled that much. I mean, we have a few deeper holes further in the west, and there wasn't nothing, but it could be that they were just too shallow or too deep, so it doesn't continue over there.
Yeah, so kind of moderate. You can add if it goes well a few 100,000 ounces if it's kind of same characteristics as the deposit.
Ikkari in a sense, it's such an exceptional ore body or a deposit that if you hit the zone, you will get the really wide, good intercepts, and that will rack up the ounces pretty fast. So that's what we're looking for with that.
You drilled quite deep, and you drilled some targets, but I mean, how geologically? We know that Agnico's deposit goes super deep; it just continues and continues. Could that be the case for this deposit as well, or is it a different type? Do you have a sense of what the depth potential can be?
Ikkari can't be really compared to the Agnico deposit, Kittilä, because it's a completely different system and different rocks. But we haven't ruled out, of course, the depth extent, because we haven't drilled there that much. So we'll have to just drill test and see what's happening deeper in Ikkari and where it goes.
Because I mean, obviously, you have a super nice gold trap here with a very almost like a cupola morphology, ideal for open pit. But it looks like so far it narrows to depth. Is that incorrect, or is that a fair characterization?
Yeah, so far, it seems the deepest holes that we have drilled, it's been narrowing a bit. But then again, if you think about the amount of drilling we have done deeper, it's only 3-4 holes. Well, maybe five holes. So it does seem that it's getting a bit narrower, but then again, drilling a bit deeper, we have seen some really high grades in the narrow zones. So, for example, in the west, we had one of our highest assays last winter ever, and that was approximately, what was it, 300-400 grams per ton for a few meters. So that was pretty good.
Okay, so is that within a continuous intercept, or does it look like it starts to branch out almost, like it starts to vein?
No, it belongs into the same Ikkari stratigraphic lithological package that we have, that we follow, and if we happen to be within the right corridor and right strain setting, then it usually is really good mineralization wise.
So how many meters have you done to depth? How many meters are you allocating towards the western plunge, potential plunge? Can you outline that?
It'll be approximately 3,000, 4,000 meters will be the deeper drilling in Ikkari, including the western plunge.
So how deep are you drilling the at depth holes? Or you're approaching like really deep, like 800 meters or something like that? Or what's the vertical?
I mean, deep drilling in Ikkari is approximately downhole 800 meters, but vertical depth, it would be -600, -800. That would be deep drilling, and then of course, if we want to go really deep and look at some real extents of Ikkari, then we would go all the way to -1,000. So that's kind of the level that we're talking of. So below -600 would be deep drilling, and western plunge, well, as we can see, it's at -400 level.
And these assays are expected to be released. Will it be May, or will you release them as a package, or if you hit something exceptional, maybe you push it out? Or what's the planning on that front?
Well, if we hit something exceptional, then we push it out, or usually we'll come out with the assays in May, June, when we, at the latest May, June, when we start receiving all of the assays back.
And at depth, what would be I mean, the western plunge, I think, is quite obvious. I mean, it just find the same thing there, right? As you see,
Yeah.
it just extends. But at depth, what would be an exceptional surprise? Is there room for that?
There definitely is room for that because it hasn't been drilled. So so we do have space, but I'd say 10 meters at 5 already would be good. Anything that has high enough grade and is wide enough to be economical to mine out even at deeper depths. So that would be a success.
Okay, so let's switch gears over to the regional package. Could you showcase where you're drilling currently and what the scope of the activities are?
Yes. So currently all of our rigs, diamond rigs, they are turning over here in area 1, which has the most potential at the moment, at least, on our permit package, and hosts, of course, the Ikkari deposit and Heina South, Ikkari North, all of the other occurrences that we found in area 1. But then we have our base of till rig, and we're also doing drone magnetics on our exploration permits. So the base of till rig has now been in Sikavara East over here, finished a program there, and currently it's working over here in Kuusejärvi. So that's there's a program ongoing, and then our drone magnetic survey is ongoing here in area 51.
Area 51. That's a good name. So, do you have defined drill targets there? Because last time we spoke, I think you said that yes, you have several like kind of drillable ideas, and that was 8 months ago or so.
Yes, we still have those targets and thought of them, and they are in our plans to drill a few scout holes on our exploration areas. Of course, depending on if we hit something fantastic in area 1 and we have to push rigs there, then we have to think about the priorities and what resources we have available. But at the moment, yes, we do have a few scout targets that we want to test during this winter in our regional package as well.
And post this drill season, when you get into May, June, what will be the main work until the next winter? Do you have any targets outside of the swampy areas to pursue drilling on, or?
Yeah, we have a few drill targets that we want to test even on dry land, and of course some targets as well in Ikkari and in the Ikkari area on the dry land that we want to test. Of course, it won't be as active as during winter season, but there are still have drilling ongoing during the summer season as well.
Yeah. So what kind of target generation work are you able to do? I mean, the broader.
Yeah. So we have this very large geological structure cross-cutting area 1. So in area 1, that's mostly swamp, so that has to be drilled during winter. But during summer, we can keep on following that same structure further northeast, closer to our Pahtavaara mine over here. So the structure is striking this way. So there are several targets over there, for example, on dry land that we want to drill test during summer or fall. So any time when it's not frozen, basically.
And obviously that structure is the gold trap that caught Ikkari. But can you explain why that's an ideal setting for gold to be caught?
Yeah, gold mineralization, it likes fluid flow, and you have to have the kind of plumbing for the fluids to flow. And usually these big structures are the pathways. They're usually broken rock, and they have a lot more open space in them. So these larger structures, they allow the fluids to flow in them. And then it's, for example, Ikkari, it's a great trap, it's a great setting. So we just need to find the next trap along that same structure, because we know that the structure already is mineralizing. We know that it has gold. Ikkari is right next to it, and several other gold occurrences. So now it's all the matter of just following the structure and finding the next trap along it. And all of our new geological knowledge that we've collected over the past years, it's helped us a lot when doing exploration along this structure and along in the area.